Nobody sees tired men. They only notice whether those men are still useful. And those are not the same thing. That is your first truth. Most men were never taught how to understand pain. They were taught how to outwork it. Think about that. A tired man doesn't usually ask for help. He stays later, works harder, sleeps less, carries more, speaks less, until eventually, people stop seeing the man. They only see the function. That is where identity begins to disappear. Because the moment your usefulness becomes your identity, rest begins to feel like failure. Read that again. That is your second truth. Many men do not believe their value comes from who they are. They believe it comes from what they produce, what they earn, what they fix, what they carry, what they sacrifice. And slowly, they stop asking a dangerous question: who am I? Instead, they ask, what am I still useful for? That question changes everything. Because eventually, a man no longer measures his life by how he feels. He measures it by whether he still deserves his place. Not through love, not through connection, through usefulness. And once usefulness becomes identity, exhaustion becomes inevitable, because you can never produce enough to finally believe you are enough. That realization changes the rest of your life. That is your third truth. Exhaustion is no longer a warning. For many men, it has become an identity. Being busy became status. Being overwhelmed became discipline. Being emotionally unavailable became maturity. And nobody questioned it, because it looked like success. Reliable, responsible, strong, disciplined, useful. Meanwhile, something else was disappearing. Not his strength, his humanity. Because survival has a strange effect. It slowly convinces you that feeling less is functioning better. Read that again. Feeling less is not healing, it is adaptation. And adaptation can quietly become a prison. That is your fourth truth. Some men do not collapse all at once. They disappear, one emotion at a time. First, they stop talking. Then, they stop asking for anything. Then, they stop expecting to be understood. Then they stop feeling anything at all. Not because they are strong, because survival made numbness feel safe. That is what most people miss. A man does not always break loudly. Sometimes he simply becomes quieter, calmer, more productive, more dependable, until everyone says he seems fine. Because competence is one of the best hiding places for pain. The better he performs, the less likely anyone is to notice he is disappearing. That realization hurts, because deep down, most men already know. Nobody was asking whether they were okay as long as they kept functioning. They were praised for surviving, while quietly forgetting how to live. That is your fifth truth. The strongest mask a man can wear is competence. Because competence earns trust, it earns respect, it earns responsibility. But it also hides suffering. Because the better you become at carrying everything, the less likely anyone is to ask whether the weight is crushing you. That is how survival survives. It rewards the behavior that keeps the pain invisible. Think about that. A man can be surrounded by people respected, needed, admired, and still feel completely unseen. Not because nobody looked, because nobody looked past what he provided. That is your sixth truth. The greatest danger is not that a man works too hard. It is that he begins to believe his only value comes from working hard. Because once usefulness becomes identity, everything else feels undeserved. Rest, love, joy, peace, even asking for help. Because deep down, he believes he has not yet earned them. Read that again. He believes he has not yet earned them. That is why so many men keep waiting. Waiting until life becomes easier. Waiting until they have more money, more success, more certainty, more proof that they are enough. And that day never comes, because enough was never a destination. It was the belief they lost years ago. So what changes now? You stop asking, how much more can I carry? And start asking, who would I be if I no longer had to earn the right to exist? because strength was never meant to be silence. And usefulness was never meant to become your identity. Want more truths like this? Subscribe now. Most people avoid hearing them. Because most men don't break from carrying too much. They break from believing they must carry it alone. In the next episode, we'll expose why you're not lazy, you're exhausted, and why modern life has convinced millions of people that burnout is a personality flaw. This channel isn't here to motivate you, it's here to help you see differently. And people who see things differently don't watch once, they stay.